The Undercountry Music News is an excerpt of the weekly internet broadcast Undercountry Music, which features music from great country artists you won't hear on mainstream radio, as well as a roundup of the most interesting country music news of the week without all the fluff. This program you're listening to right now contains only the news portion of the show. To listen and subscribe to the full weekly episode containing the music and interviews, please visit undercountrymusic.com or simply subscribe to the Undercountry Music Podcast on iTunes. Let's get into it. Wow. Love it. You know what? I had to take a picture of myself here doing the show in my kitchen, and I just now posted it to the Undercountry Music Podcast Facebook page. So if you'd like to see sort of what I'm working with here tonight, just kind of go over to my my Facebook page and you'll see it. I think it's facebook.com/undercountry. And you can give me a follow and a holler over there if you want. I always love hearing from you guys. And you know what? Speaking of Facebook, guys, stop it with the stupid ass ice bucket BS already. You know, only about 30% of those donations are going to Al's research, right? Well, at least that's what I read from one thing that Snopes already shot down. It might be more than that, but whatever. But anyway, a lot of that money goes to pay people who coordinate the fundraising efforts and executive overhead and stuff like that. Now, you know, I got to tell you, I'm not entirely knocking it. It's been proven that more money actually does get raised this way. So it is what it is, but enough with the ice buckets. I don't need to see every last damn person on the planet dunk a damn bucket over their heads. If you are so hot on owls or whatever charity you're so hot on, go support it. Go volunteer for them. Give them your money, whatever, you know. Otherwise, you know, get that crap off my Facebook feed already. I want to see, you know, funny cat stuff again. That's just me. Because, you know what? I don't like it in my news feed, but what I do like in my news feed is what is the latest and greatest with country music news. And that's what I explore right here every single week, because it's time for the News! Yeah, baby. Come here, cowgirl. All right. The Undercountry Music News, for those of you who don't know, it's not just me here bringing you news stories as if I went out and got all the stories. Like I sit around with a little, you know, press hat on and getting all the back things in Nashville. No, quite honestly, I don't even go into Nashville that much. I sort of enjoy my little hideaway here in Murfreesboro. I like to kind of stay out of the hubbub. Instead, I do go into Nashville and I enjoy what it has to offer, but I do it here and there. I don't live, eat, sleep, and breathe it. But anyway, what I do here each week for the Undercountry Music News is I go and I sort of let you know what the top country music news outlets are reporting on that's actually interesting and not just some BS fluff press release. So in other words, what I do is I go onto Google, I type in the search term Undercountry Music News, and whatever websites come up on the front page of Google, I go onto them. And, you know, like, maybe there'll be like 3 or 4 Taylor Swift stories about some nonsense that she's doing. And that's in all of them. And, you know, what can I say? It draws them viewers and what. I can't knock them for doing that stuff. But what I do is I instead look for stuff that's actually news. Actually stuff that's, you know, not just a press release, but is actually something that stands out as actual news. And isn't just a freaking promo piece. Although, you know, some interesting promo pieces make it in here. And I figure you're smart enough to know which ones those are. So I go from one site, I find one here, one there. a couple on this other site, whatever, and I compile them all together to bring you just the essential, boiled down, real country music news that, I guess you can use. All right? And that's what I do. And if I go onto a website and that, comes up in those search results and it doesn't have jack bupkis but fluff and garbage, I usually will reward a really poor performing website with the dreaded undercountry music news wet belch of the week, which I believe last week I gave to Nashville Gab. Let's see how they do this week. All right, let's get it going. Let's get into it. Yeah, that's my tagline, right? Don't I say let's get into it? I think I do. My brain is mush right now. But okay, over at CMT. Now, last week, I read a short blurb about Angelina Presley from the Pistol Annies releasing some new material, and I don't recall at the moment which news source I was bringing that to you from, but the writer had insinuated that the Pistol Annies may no longer be a thing, and didn't elaborate any further. Okay, come this week over at CMT, writer Allison Bonaguro writes that in a recent interview with Fox News, Angelina Presley states the Pistol Annies are quote-unquote taking a little break due to the members all individually having a lot going on, but that they foresee themselves someday performing again as the Pistol Grannies. All right, I think that means it's probably going to be a little while. Whatever. Hope to get those Pistol Annies back soon. Country Weekly. Ann Womack will be exchanging songs with John Legend on a new installment of CMT Crossroads, September 26th. And Alan Jackson's new exhibit at the Country Music Hall of Fame in Nashville is now open. Go check it out. All right, moving along to Taste of Country. Brad Paisley has spent the past couple of weeks slowly leaking every last song from his new album, Moonshine in the Trunk, in different and creative ways so that he could personally reveal his intent behind all the songs in fun and creative ways. I think that's pretty cool. As a thank you from his record label for leaking the songs before the label could release them, an executive over at Sony Music leaked Brad's personal email address. Thank you, buddy. All right, over at GAC, a new show called Slippin RVs, which I do every time they're driving slow in front of me, is premiering on GAC September 3rd. Now, this show's about two people named Justin and Anna. I assume these two are a couple, but the article doesn't really specify. Just that they spend a really, really long amount of time together, okay? Anyway, they look all over America for trailers and RVs needing renovations. They, in other words, beat up junkers. They take them and return them not only to their former glory, but also modernize the heck out of them. Probably something like Pimp My Ride. Something like that, okay? Now, I know that's not really about country music, but it could sure make you king or queen of the trailer park you're listening to me from. Also, GAC is reporting that Trisha Yearwood's cooking show on the Food Network called Trisha's Southern Kitchen is a finalist for the Cablefax Program Awards for the category of Best Host Food, which she actually won last year. So good luck, Trisha. We hope you get it. Take a sip of coffee here. I got one of those wire mesh coffee filters so I could quit drinking cowboy coffee with all the grounds in it. That was getting old. Okay, over at The Boot. Checking in with theboot.com. Carrie Underwood has announced that she is pregnant. Okay, I made up the black part. But anyway, she and her husband, Mike Fisher, are expecting. Carrie did announce via Instagram. Now, Carrie is set to return as the host of the CMA Awards this November and is rumored to be this coming Super Bowl's halftime performer, which leads me to another interesting tidbit that has gotten some people a bit riled up over the past few weeks. People who are really big on musician and artist rights. And rightfully so. And that is that it has been revealed recently that the NFL is now making artists pay, and pay in the millions, to be the Super Bowl halftime performer. Now, this is not new territory for any musician who has struggled their way up in the business. It's called pay to play. And on the bottom feeder side of the industry, where I've been residing pretty much all my life, it's usually a practice employed by venues to make sure they cover their expenses for the night when, in other words, make the artist rent out the hall. Except I don't think there's going to be any worry about the hall not having a butt in every seat on Super Bowl Sunday, So that doesn't really apply here. So it's just the NFL sees a way to wring an extra million out of someone. Now, I have personally never paid to play, nor would I, as I value myself and what I do as an entertainer. I mean, if you don't value yourself, how do you expect anyone else to value you? Now, I have done the deal where I've agreed to sell tickets, and if I didn't meet the minimum requirement for ticket sales, I would have to make up the difference in order to have a spot on the bill. I tried that twice in like the 80s, and it wasn't a real good experience. Now, some entertainers make the direct ticket selling thing work. In Vegas, they refer to this as four-walling. The entertainer rents out the hall for the night and then runs around and hustles to fill it. They run around doing little promo spots and getting out on the street and entertaining people one-on-one, giving them a little taste of what they'll get that night, and selling tickets right then and there. Now, to each their own. If it's in your blood to get out there and do it that way and you just absolutely love it, that's one thing. But for the most part, I would normally discourage musicians from ever paying to play in any situation, especially if the person is trying to talk you into it and then tries to tell you how you're going to benefit from all the quote-unquote exposure you'll get. Now, that word exposure, that's the red flag word that tells you that it's complete BS. Now, if you do go do a gig for exposure where you don't pay to play, you just go out there and do it for free for exposure, and you happen to land something good from it, you just consider that a nice bonus in this business. It's not something you count on. But I would never take a gig because some slick talker's trying to convince me of all this exposure and what it's going to bring me. No, usually what it brings you is people find out you came that night for free, and then they try to get you for free too. I've been around way too long to fall for this crap anymore. So, either as a musician or in my DJ business. But anyway, moving right along here. Oh yeah. Now, Carrie Underwood, they're thinking about having her do the halftime show. Now think about this. I don't know how far along she's in her pregnancy. Maybe by the time that comes up, it'll be a few months in her past and she'll be in great shape. But otherwise, there's a lot of prep that goes into it because, basically, it is a collapsible extravaganza. They have to roll that whole deal out there, have it up and live in 15 minutes or so, Then they put on the world's biggest extravaganza on the 50-yard line and then tear it all down and roll it on out of there in the next 15 minutes. I mean, it's absolutely an insane. It's actually logistically completely insane. And they pull it off year after year after year. And I got to tell you, my hat is off to the people who do this. Now Carrie Underwood doing the halftime show here and paying to do it, but she's already a celebrity spokes musician for the NFL. You know, she kind of took over Hank Williams Jr. thing after he said something that the hand-wringing lefty crowd didn't particularly like. Okay, so now, you know, she's everybody's darling. She never says anything that offends anybody, and, well, the NFL's kind of liking that. Because, well, you know, whatever, you know, it's business. So here's the deal. Now, is Carrie going to pay them millions of dollars, or is she going to make a deal where she now goes on and is the spokes musician for the next year for the NFL? Is she going to do that for free for the privilege of going out and busting her ass to put together this crazy logistical nightmare known as the Super Bowl halftime show for absolutely no pay? That's nuts. I would say, Carrie, don't do it. Tell them where to shove it. I definitely would. You got the clout, baby. You don't need it. All right? Anyway, in other news over at the Boot, bluegrass legend Del McCoury will be honored by the Berklee College of Music with an American Roots Master Award during an upcoming concert of his, which is scheduled for September 12th. Very well deserved. Over at Nashville Gab, now they did get the wet belch last week. I had some choice words for them. And, well, looks like they stepped up their game a little bit this week, and I'm glad to see it. Because they've got an article on the band Shenandoah, who will be reuniting with former member Marty Raybon for a new tour. No word on whether or not they'll be releasing any new music or just mailing in their old hits for a quick and dirty paycheck just yet. Let's hope they crank out some new music, like Shenandoah. Also, Nashville Gab is reporting that Jason Aldean will release his 6th studio album entitled Old Boots, New Dirt on October 7th. Let's check in with the 615. Give me a little sip of coffee here. Getting cotton mouth. I haven't gotten cotton mouth since I used to smoke pot. All right, over at the 615. Last week, I had the unpleasant job of bringing you the news of Josh Gracin reportedly leaving a suicide note on Facebook. Well, this week, I have the pleasure of reporting that Josh Gracin is back out on tour. And at least on the surface, appears to be in decent spirits. Now that seems a bit sudden to me for someone who was just undergoing evaluation because he was thinking about ending his own life. If I've been on tour. Now if there's any setting that would make, a person surround themselves in a false reality, which isn't always the most healthiest setting, I would say life on the road would certainly be it. Especially with all the downtime you got, like sitting in a hotel room, trying to figure out something to do. I guess he can go do radio interviews or whatnot, but, hopefully this will all remind him of all the great reasons to live. As he runs around and meets fans and makes money and signs boobs. Also over at the 615, you can get a listen at the new release by Hal Ketchum called I'm the Troubadour. Now, Hal has spent the past 5 years battling MS. All right, that sound effect's actually supposed to be saved for the 1-2 song punch a little later, but whatever. Now, his battles with MS have included bouts of blindness and, being somewhat paralyzed and just other really terrible things associated with that disease. So with that in mind, it's great to see him getting back at it. And you know what? I had to listen to this song, and you can hear it over at the 615. And I got to tell you, vocally, the guy sounded great. Sounded like, he'd never been in better health. Now, unfortunately, as far as the music goes, there was absolutely no imagination or creativity at all to the music backing him. There's like zero effort because he's just singing over a very generic 12-bar blues progression that's been beat to death for the last 70 years. And, that's sad, I give Hal's new song, I'm the Troubadour, a D-. I gotta tell you, I don't get it. I don't understand why anybody thinks it's a good idea to put their lyrics, thoughts, and feeling over a mailed-in bed of 12-bar blues. My God, is it that freaking hard just to write some music to go with what you're singing? That's not writing music. That's using the most generic canned BS you can think of and slapping it behind you and calling it a song. And I call musicians on that. I think it's BS. Write some damn music. All right, over at Country Standard Time, the CMA will be announcing its final nominees this coming Wednesday, September 3rd. And the nominees will be announced by Little Big Town and also Darius Rucker. Now, if I were a betting man, I would say that the nominees are going to most likely be pretty much all the same people as last year and the year before. That's usually the way that stuff goes. Have I mentioned that I hate award shows? That's right. I drink the blood of small children, too, in case you didn't know. Anyway, this has been your Undercountry Music News. Yeah! News you can use, along with a taste of my own views, which you may or may not like. But they mine, and I'm going to say them. I'm too old for this crap. I don't run around kissing everyone's butt in town. I say it like I feel it. And nothing I like feeling better than some bovines. I like to feel bovines. Thank you for listening to the Undercountry Music News. The Undercountry Music News is just a small excerpt of the weekly hour-long internet broadcast Undercountry Music, where I, Neil Smith, not only round up the week in country music news and put my own spin on it, but I also play music and have great interviews by lesser-known original country acts, the kind that you won't hear on mainstream country radio. If you're thirsting for that, get on over to undercountrymusic.com where you can listen and subscribe. You can also subscribe via iTunes to Undercountry Music. Thanks so much. Stay under, stay country.